Let's go through the exercise of figuring out the supply curve for a firm in the short run. Remember that for a competitive firm, the residual demand is a horizontal line. So how much extra revenue does a firm get if they sell one more unit? Well, they just get P, extra dollars, the price. So as we've discussed, the marginal revenue is just P. So if you want to find the optimal quantity, we've seen how you're going to find the optimal quantity Q star where the marginal revenue and the marginal cost are equal to one another. In other words, you're going to set the marginal cost equal to the price. So the quantity Q star where marginal cost equals the price is the quantity that you want to pick. The second order condition, remember, tells us that the derivative of the marginal cost has to be bigger than the derivative of the marginal revenue. The derivative of the marginal revenue is 0, so the derivative of the marginal cost has to be positive. So the marginal cost has to be an upward sloping curve. So if we draw a picture of this, the revenue curve is just a straight line because your revenue, as you generate more quantity, the revenue is just going to be P times Q. So the slope of this line is just P. And when you produce 0 quantity, you get 0 profit. Your cost, remember, is upward sloping. You might have some fixed cost. So this would be F, and then you're going to have an upward sloping cost curve. Remember, we are typically going to be assuming that your cost function is convex. That's how your profit function is going to be concave. So if we subtract the cost from revenue, so revenue minus cost, that's just a profit. So if we subtract from the straight line, we subtract the curve, we get this profit. Where is the flat part of the profit curve? So the highest profit, it's exactly where the distance between the cost and the revenue is at its highest. If we were to draw the marginal cost and the average cost, for example, in a separate picture, remember we've done this in previous chapters. Given the cost curve, we were able to figure out how to draw the average cost and the marginal cost curves. If we draw those, and particularly once we draw the marginal cost curve, the point where the marginal cost curve crosses the marginal revenue, which is just a horizontal line at height P, is exactly where profit is maximized because that's the first order condition. What's your profit going to be? Well, your profit is going to be the price minus average cost times quantity. So this is your optimal quantity. Profit is going to be revenue minus cost. Your revenue is the price times quantity. So remember, this is the price, this is the quantity. So this rectangle here, the area of this rectangle, gives us our total revenue. Our total cost is C, which I can multiply and divide by Q. But this thing is average cost. So that's PQ minus Q times the average cost. And now the average cost at Q star is here. This point right here. So our total cost is this area. It's average cost times quantity. So if we subtract from the big rectangle the smaller rectangle for cost, we're left with this as our profit. So graphically, that's what your profit is. Now you'll remember, the next thing after calculating the optimal Q star is to figure out whether we need to shut down or not. There are 3 cases to consider. In the first case, the price is above the minimum average cost. In this case, you're actually making money, so you should stay in business. So your profit is going to be positive. In the second case, the price is between the minimum average cost and the minimum average variable cost. Remember, the average cost is always going to be higher than the average variable cost. And that's because the average cost includes the fixed cost, but the average variable cost doesn't. So in the second case, the price is between average cost and average variable cost. Now, because the price is lower than the minimum average cost, you're not recovering all of your costs, so you are making a loss. But because the price is higher than your average variable cost, you're recovering all of your variable costs and then some. So you're eating into the fixed cost. So you're reducing your loss by staying in business. The third case is when your price is below the minimum average variable cost. In this case, you're not even covering your variable costs. So you're losing money, and staying in business is causing you to lose even more money. So you should shut down. So in the first two cases, you shouldn't shut down, but in the last case, you should. If this were your average cost curve, and this were your average variable cost curve, then you've got your minimum average cost, so the point where it's at its lowest, your minimum average variable cost, the point at which your average variable cost is at its lowest. So the first case is where the price is above the lowest average cost. The second case is where the price is above the lowest average variable cost. And the third case is where the price is lower than the lowest average variable cost. So you want to shut down here. And nowhere else do you want to shut down. So only when the price is lower than the lowest average variable cost do you want to shut down. At any other price, you want to pick the quantity where the price equals the marginal cost. So now we're in good shape to start to define exactly what the supply curve should be. So remember, whenever the price is greater than the lowest average variable cost, the firm wants to pick the quantity, Q star, where the marginal cost is exactly equal to the price. And at any price lower than the lowest average variable cost, they want to pick 0. That's your supply curve. So if we look at the marginal cost curve, and we look at the average cost and the average variable cost curve, any price below here, you're going to shut down. You're not going to produce anything. At any price above this, you're going to pick the quantity where marginal cost is exactly equal to the price. So at this price here, you're going to say, okay, I want to pick the quantity where marginal cost is exactly equal to P. So your supply curve is just going to follow the marginal cost curve anywhere above this point right here. But below that, at any price here, you're just going to pick the quantity 0. So that gives us exactly what your supply curve needs to look like. So any price below this P, you're going to shut down. So your supply curve is just 0 at any price below P. At P and above, you just follow this marginal cost curve. That's the supply curve. So now we know where the supply curve that we've seen in earlier chapters comes from.